Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? I am here with the great privilege today of introducing you to Crystal Blanton. Now, it seems kind of silly for me to introduce Crystal Blanton because she's so well known. She's our keeper of the light. She's an activist. She's an advocate. She's a social worker. She is in the business of knowing people. And you probably, many of you, if you're lucky, have gotten a chance to know her either through her work or personally, as I have. And Diana gave us a wonderful introduction of Crystal that gave all of her credentials and her book titles and the things about her that we know that are public. But I thought that today I would introduce you to a side of Crystal Blanton that you might not know about. And that is Crystal Blanton as a friend. You cannot ask to have a more loving friend than Crystal. Crystal Blanton is the kind of person who will wake up at 6 in the morning and do her full day of work advocating for the needs of underserved youth and still find time amidst all of that to text you and ask you how you're doing. How is your heart? How did your day go? There have been many, many times over the past few years of knowing Crystal. We've been friends for now almost a decade, or maybe even longer than a decade, actually, when I think about it, that at 11:30 or midnight, when she gets done with her day of taking care of people for her work, that she also checks up and just wants to see how I'm doing. Even at midnight, she's taking care of her friends. I've had the pleasure of going over to Crystal's home and celebrating with her children and her family when they had intimate celebrations of birthdays. I've had the joy of being somebody who Crystal felt like she could talk to when she was suffering, struggling, when she was undergoing persecution, either at her job or in the pagan community. Because the thing is, those things still happen to Crystal. Persecution still happens to her. When she walks down the street, even though we know how accomplished she is, there are still people who look at her and who treat her rudely because of her appearance, because of her race, because they're having a bad day and they're looking for someone to kick around, and because she's loving. There are many, many times when Crystal puts herself aside so that others can be comfortable. There are many times when Crystal, even though she has undergone something far worse than you have, will make it all about you and your needs and your pain. It is so important that we not take advantage of this kind of tender heart. It is so important that this tender heart lives, breathes, exists, and beats amidst the cruelty of our contemporary society. Yesterday morning, I woke up and I reached for one of my women's studies books from when I was in college 20 years ago. And I was reading and looking for a quote that might be useful for me to bring today to introduce Crystal. And reading through that text, I started to cry. And then I actually just cried all day yesterday because I could see that very little has changed. Reading those quotes from 20 years ago, some of which were written 40 years ago, some of which were written 60 years ago. The world still has a long way to go for there to be true harmony, equality, and concordance between people. But Crystal makes every day about that. And so the quote that I thought that I would bring to you today is actually a quote by Gwendolyn Brooks, the poet. And I think that it sums up best the way that Crystal Blanton lives her life as our priestess and as my friend. And the quote is, We are each other's harvest. We are each other's business. We are each other's magnitude and bond. I hope that you will give an incredibly warm, loving welcome to my friend and truly a friend to humanity, Crystal Blanton.
Woo!
Thank you. I'm going to try my best not to cry. Anyone who knows me really well knows that that's an impossible task, but I'm going to try anyway. And I wrote my thoughts down because there's so much that I wanted to say, and I wanted to focus my thoughts into the message I really wanted to send. So bear with me. I've thought long and hard about what to get up here and say. Being named the Keeper of the Light for 2015 is such an honor, and it's one that I did not expect. I just do the job I am called to do. It is not something I think will gain me recognition or attention. There is no fame in right action. Instead, right action gives us a chance to breathe with our community. It's an act of honoring those who stand beside us, before us, and behind us. It is an act of honoring those who have come before us and those who have yet to come. The act of being in service is one that I have always found fundamental to my ability to just be. My mother was a woman of service. She used to teach me how to be present for the needs of others by showing me how to share love with those who needed it the most. She did that by taking care of their children, by feeding them, and by sharing her shelter when they needed it. I will never forget at her memorial, I was sitting in a packed room and listening to every person speak about living with my mom. My husband leaned over to me and said, "Did everyone live with your mom?" And I said, "Pretty much." But she taught me something really important. She taught me that love was active. Whether she was running her daycare, feeding the neighbors, or adopting everyone into her family, her kind of love was the kind that came with service. Love is an action, not a feeling. No wonder I grew up to be a social worker. I don't know how to not be invested in my community, my neighbor, my fellow friend. I am not sure how to turn away from the work of justice. For this reason, and many others, I am excited that the return of the festival is focusing on the spiritual act of service. Not because I am this year's choice to stand up here, but because there are so many reasons why service is invaluable to our intersecting communities today. We are living in a time where our ability to come together is the only way we will be able to grow through the layers of hurt that exists. When I thought about what I wanted to share, the thing that kept coming back to me was the nature of the relationship that exists between ourselves and our communities. The reciprocal nature of relationship supports our ability to be accountable for what we put out and for what we take. It is the idea that we are always responsible for how we show up in the world and for what we do or do not do. The idea that we are a part of the evolving of relationships with our society is one that some people struggle with, but it is something I have found to be the backbone of my spiritual path. how I contribute to society, what I do in my daily walk, how I give and then take from those things around me. All of that is a part of what makes me want to show up and be in right action. The spiritual act of contribution is one that I do not take lightly. Further, I think it is important to reflect on how our contribution is in alignment with our values and how it feeds the relationships that we have with our gods. My personal spiritual work is born from that very foundation. It is from that place that I continue to want to be a part of justice work, and that I have continued to explore the intersections between being a pagan, being a social worker, being a wife and a parent, digging deeper into my ancestral connections, and advocating for radical self-love and acceptance as a Black woman. Today, we are living in a world that is experiencing great pain. There is great need, and yet we are living in a time of uprising. People from all over are standing up to change the landscape of our society. Uprising is happening today, in the streets, in the city council offices, in our institutions of higher learning, and in our homes. People are learning how to rise up and use integrity as our shield. From the shutdown of the social work department at UC Berkeley to the streets of Baltimore, we are seeing love in action. I was just recently at the state capitol this last month, and I was lobbying with the National Association of Social Workers and with other social workers from colleges throughout California. I was lucky enough to have Cal State sponsor me to go. And I got to speak with my local assembly office on the upcoming SB 3, SB 4, and SB 23. All bills that are critical in supporting the social welfare of some of the most marginalized populations in our state. SB 23 was my bill to speak about in our group of 6 social workers, the Senate bill that will repeal the family maximum grant here in California. I was sitting there in the Assemblywoman's office for District 14, thinking about the spiritual act of fighting for infants and young children to be afforded food, nourishment for their little bodies. And I had this moment, this experience, that synergy that exists when we do and how we are coming together as one, the sum of all of our parts. A moment where there is a clear understanding that the social worker is also the pagan, that is also the mother, that is also the responsible citizen, that is also the wife, that is also the Black woman, that is also the college graduate, that is also the lobbyist, and the priestess, and the change maker, and the spiritual warrior, and the activist, and the lover, and the fighter. That a true moment of self-actualization means that we accept we are all of those things all the time. And therefore, we individually and collectively have the chance to use that power in the world for great change. So I am honored, incredibly honored to be here and to walk with those who take great heart in putting love into action, who take their pagan spirituality to the streets, use their power to affect change for right action, and who commit to the power of service. There are so many people and there are so many places that need us. They need us from feeding the hungry to teaching children how to read, to dismantling the prison industrial complex, to stopping the militarization of our police, to supporting the families of those being killed in our communities, to donating clothing, to helping people write a resume so they can get a job. There are so many ways we can be involved. There are so many areas that need us. So today, I want to thank everybody that does just that. In taking this honor of being the keeper of the light for 2015, I realize that I am just one. There are so many out there, and there's so many of us that are needed to affect change and to help our communities heal. When we put love into action, we are extensions of one another in the work of a true, just, loving, and equitable society where everyone has more opportunity to thrive. And I want to give a special thank you for those who know that Black Lives Matter without a question. I can't forget to mention the work of our community as we have grown collectively in our ability to welcome and accept ethnic diversity. The community today is much different than it was 12, 13 years ago when I ventured in. And the community, the landscape of our community is continuing to grow, and we are expanding. And we are learning how to see the beauty in one another, truly see the beauty in one another, despite all the differences and despite the pain that we all walk through. I really, really want to acknowledge that in this community. Being a Black woman in this community has been challenging for me. Being a Black woman in society is challenging. And yet, I acknowledge and see the incredible amounts of love, the incredible amounts of support that I get to do this work and to keep showing up. I was laughing with my friend earlier today. Anybody who's close to me knows how I feel about being right smack dab in the middle of like everybody looking at you. And she says, well, you deserve to be honored. And I said, why? All I did was show up and be Black and not go away. And she said, exactly. And I was like, okay, I got it. And today, I am so grateful that we as a community are expanding to create safe zone for people who aren't the expected within our community. And I really want to acknowledge that. And I can't stand up here and not give a shout out to those people who do the work all the time. And I want to say thank you to Solar Cross. I want to say thank you to Who Are. I want to say thank you to Kaya. I want to say thank you to the Pagan Alliance. I want to say thank you to Pantheacon. And I want to say thank you to all of the people who spend their time doing this work, whether it's hugging that person that really needs it, giving money when you have it, finding time to donate. I want to say thank you. So we have a little bit of a treat, and so I want to say two things as a segue while I'm standing up here. And one of those is that there is a justice altar that we have built over there. And what I really would love is for this festival and for us as a people to just spend a moment sending some energy and love to those people who are actively suffering in community right now. Tomorrow is Mother's Day. I know for me, losing my mother 5 years ago, it has a totally different meaning for me today than it did 5 years ago. And yet I cannot imagine being that mother right now whose child was killed. I cannot imagine holding that pain on a day that celebrates you. So as we go through the rest of this festival, I want us to remember that there are people in great pain, and take a moment to just send some energy to that justice altar. There is a working on that altar that I will then take and continue with the blessings of this community. And so with that, one other side announcement. May 28th starts the 30-day Real Black History Challenge that I started 3 years ago. I'm going for a third year. So it also will have its own website this year. Very excited about that. I'm really, really grateful to the people who have supported this project. And so look out for it. May 28th, I started on my birthday. And it will go for 30 days, although I always cheat a couple of extra days and extend it for encore. Because I can. So with that, I want to call up some incredible people to the stage with me who are going to join us in doing a blessing and working for the Black mothers in our community and who are suffering right now, who are facing the idea of Mother's Day as a reminder of the fact that they have not gotten justice. And as I read this, I wrote this earlier this year, and I have done this working twice, and felt like it was really fitting to do this year at this festival. So as I read this, I just ask you to breathe with me. Let it sink in. Listen to the words. And we are going to sing, and if you feel so moved to join us in song, to help raise this energy and send it out to those mothers who need that support, to a system that needs to hear their voices, for families who are struggling with how to find justice in a system when they are not seen. And we're going to breathe this energy out to them. And today is this on? Is this on? Today is the Million Moms March in Washington, D.C. Many of the mothers and family members and their allies and supporters of people who've been killed by police in America are marching right now. And many of our local mothers are there. Blessed be. So this piece is called Black Mother. From the depths of her soul, she mourns. From the fear of her present, she cries for the reality that she must hand to her child. From the shadows of her experiences, she gives the lessons of a mother who prepares her child for battle. She is the carrier of hardship inside of a harsh world, the holder of the painful lessons, and the mother of the endangered. She is the beginning of all life, and she is the seeker of true justice. She is the caregiver for the oppressor and the trainer for the oppressed. She is the warrioress stuck in the tower, unable to save her children from death. She is mother. She is Black mother. She is forgotten, the forgotten of the bereaved, while she holds the hands of those who dismiss her pain. She holds the power of the universe and harnesses the dark shadows of the world. She is the magic of motherhood and possesses the thighs often stolen for others' pleasures, while discarded for the perception of her ugliness. She is mother. She is Black mother. She carries the pain of her lineage and the hope of her visions. She walks the floors of the bottom and finds magic when there is nothing else left. She bears the misfortune of the darkness of society and passes the culture of survival to the next generation. She is mother. She is Black mother. And as she rises from the bottom once again, take a moment to acknowledge her need for justice. Send her blessings, comfort, and a call for justice to those suffering the loss of their child taken too soon. Let this energy reverberate into the world. We give it to the Black Madonna as she heals, encourages, protects, and strengthens the Black mothers in our society and their children so they can continue to thrive, to fight, to live in our communities, and to touch a sense of equity in our world. May she be blessed as we are so blessed today. So mote it be. I want to thank you. I want to thank all these incredible, incredible women behind me that I learn from, that I breathe with, that I love. I want to thank Esmeralda Chanel for writing that song, for being such an incredible Black woman priestess. I want to thank you for everything you do and for what you haven't done yet. I am looking forward to joining each and every one of you in this fight for justice, for service, for equity, and for putting love into action. Thank you.